Welcome back to Stories with Dave. Thanks for tuning in for part 2 of chapter 9, Tweek, and ye shall find. Kotaku remembered little tricks like that one once he devised them. He knew he'd have to use them again. He taught them to colleagues too, who'd started coming out from siesta for on-the-job training at Hokey Pokey about the same time the Jesus units arrived. Spencer wanted to deepen the bench. Kotaku wanted more scheduling flexibility. That morning, Curtis and Nipper came out, and then T arrived to begin her training in the afternoon. By the time T came on board, he had worked his orientation into something resembling an onboarding experience. At the very least, Kotaku made sure they all learned the fundamental kung fu on syllabus day. Okay, rule number 1, let your eyes find the price. We've tagged everything with these bright orange price tags for a reason. Gives you a natural focus. That's important. Every time a customer comes up to the counter, she's going to tell me a story, or he. Sometimes that might be an interesting story. Sometimes it might not. If I check out with a box of graham crackers, a package of Hershey bars, and a bag of marshmallows, what could you deduce reasonably about my current leisure activities? T's brow furrowed effortlessly. There was less than 4.5 feet of her. She may have weighed 100 pounds, soaking wet, and most of that was hair, which shot out at every direction, like a punker hairdo lost to command. Her body remained constantly in motion. Even when she tried as hard as she could to calm down, there had to be some release, some valve, however tiny, even if it was just one arm dancing on its own behind her back, or one wrist twirling around itself. Her face stayed in motion too, in 1,000 little micro gestures that you might call tics if you didn't know better. A single limb or a single facial feature would suddenly jump to life. Her nostrils worked constantly, as did the muscles that controlled her ears. If you paid really close attention, you could see that her entire head was dancing all the time. Do what? Where do you keep the Hershey bars at? No, that was an example. Let me back up. Yes, sir, you done lost the shit out of me. Okay, so the thing is, if you don't want to picture the customer in some sexual act, then you need to avoid reading the actual labels of whatever it is they're buying. See what I mean? Oh, yeah. I think I get it now. Like, some hunky feller comes up and I can see what he's buying, him some chaps, and that's pretty dang hot. But that same hunky feller's buying him a big old string of anal beads or something nasty, and that ain't so dang hot. Exactly. So if you want to avoid that, just kind of blur your vision until your eyes find the bright orange spot. Okay. To be honest, though, we could sell the shit out of some Hershey's bars in here because, man, sex makes people hungrier than all get out. I ain't lying. Sometimes I get to effing so bad I could eat a daggum whole 6-foot sub from Subway. Almost did too once. True effing story. And that's pretty hungry. I definitely see what you're saying, though. I'll bring that up to Spencer, or shit, you can't even. It's one big happy family around here, to be honest. Everybody's really cool. Yeah, that's totally cool. Except it means I'm like sucking my brother's dick or something. Ha ha ha, sucking my brother's dick. I got to remember to tell Cotton that and he'll shit himself, you know? There's countries where that's all right, though, and it ain't against the law or nothing. But that's just fucked up. That's why America's the fucking best, man. Hey, did you ever know I kissed Gene Simmons? She asked, gesturing at Coat Talker's baseball cap, which featured a sew-on cartoon patch of Gene's face with his tongue sticking out. No, I'm sure you didn't. I definitely remember that. Well, everything you heard about that man's tongue is the gospel truth, and I know from experience. I kid you not. He liked to stuck that thing in my mouth and twisted it all the way down to my a-hole. I swear to effing God, corkscrewing like a daggum duck's penis. It was at a Kiss concert in Cleveland. That's where I'm from originally. Cleveland, Ohio, not Tennessee. Jesus, no, I could never live in Cleveland, Tennessee. Didn't talk like this till I lived down here a spell, though. Running coke didn't help neither, tell you the truth. Pick that nut down here, too. Boy, oh boy, it makes you talk a lot, except everything you say winds up coming out all effed up, you know. But it's hard to even find clean dope anymore. Coke nowadays. It's all been washed 100 gazillion effing times, you know it? I effing miss the 80s, man. Code Talker gnawed in awe. He was stuck all the way back at Duck's penis. But yeah, it was in Cleveland, and he done walked by outside the Coliseum. Gene did, and I hollered, Gene, and he just come right over and ducked me back like he was dancing ballroom style and planted one on me, man. I mean, he done planted one through me. I swear I could feel it all the way down in my pussy. That's intense, Code Talker said, scanning the doorway instinctively. He'd been conditioned by the trauma of unboxing day to expect Candy Goolsby to appear whenever someone said something particularly purple. F&A, intense ain't even the beginning of it. So, yeah, that should cover everything. Let me see. Register, keys, computer. Yeah, that's about it. Always remember to hang around in here when there's a customer. That cuts down on funny stuff. Funny stuff? Yeah, playing with merch, shoplifting, that sort of thing. Well, ain't nothing funny about none of that. Well, I guess not, no. I reckon if I was to catch somebody in here being funny, we'd have to move that dial up to hilarious after I cut their little nuts off. Ha 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 ha. Code Talker was exhausted from nervous, gratuitous laughter. But very often with tea, nervous, gratuitous laughter was the only appropriate reply. This particular evening, he was rescued by the last customer of the day. He came through the door of the display room just at that moment. He was a dapper gentleman dressed in a three-piece suit in a London fog. Code Talker could see the bright tail of a pocket watch vanish somewhere behind the lapel. He grinned and greeted the gentleman, who said in an accent every bit as authentically British as his coat, My God, man, do you have any... No, my good man, do you have any film or any reading materials on the topic of lactating women? Code Talker's smile faded slowly like a trained bathtub cooling. No, I'm positive we don't have any, we don't have that material available at the moment. But I'm sure you can find something that interests you if you'd like to have a look around the shop. We could special order something for you, though. I'd need to get your name and contact information so we can let you know when it comes in. The gentleman smiled and raised one hand, palm out, and said, No, I couldn't put you through the bother of all that now, could I? However, you've been most helpful, young man. I thank you. Good evening, the gentleman said. Good evening, Code Talker replied, saluting. It didn't occur to him until much later that he'd saluted the old man. What in the Sam? Did I hear him right? T said. Just then, before Code Talker could even answer, a scream let out from the office. A scream that came from several female voices at once, mixed with a collective gasping, whooping sound. It sounded like a gaggle of angry geese protecting their young from some perceived threat. What in the world? T said. Code Talker grinned wide. Sounds like those church ladies may have finally found Jesus. Much later that evening, back at the Honeycomb hideout, he found Nipper on the back porch, seated in a lotus position on the cistern lid, practicing the technique he was now referring to as Tibetan throat seduction. Hey, man, he said, pouring a glass of peach moonshine. Where's Wally at? Hey, go easy on that, man, Nipper said. I ain't going to see old Don Paul for at least another 2 weeks. Shit, who knows? Running with Cotton up on the mountain, I reckon. Remember when you were writing that story about the girl who had to sneak off to have an abortion? You were struggling for a collective noun for church ladies? Shit, yes. You got one? Sure do, Code Talker said, letting his grin presage the big reveal. Astonishment, he said. An astonishment of church ladies. Thanks for joining me tonight for part 2, chapter 9, Hokey, Tweek, and Ye Shall Find. Next time, chapter 10, Signs and Wonders. See you then.